Jesus' great invitation to where he says, "Come to me, all who are weary, learn from me, take my yoke upon you. You will find rest for your soul." And the thing about that is, while we have been passionate and driven by the Great Commandment and the Great Commission, like the Great Invitation really is the genesis. Like it's what, before Jesus sends us out to do all of this ministry kind of work, he actually invites us in.
Welcome to the Innovative Church Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Bryant. In every episode, we bring in guests who will inspire, encourage you to be more effective in your mission field. On today's episode of the Innovative Church Leaders Podcast, I'm excited to have with me Mike and Lori McDaniel. How are you two doing today?
Great.
Doing awesome. Excited to be here.
We had a chance to spend a weekend together when I came to your church there in Arkansas 10 years ago, hard to believe. And I'm super excited about the Great Invitation, this new ministry you have for pastors and church leaders. But before we jump into that, I'd love for you to just take a moment and encourage these pastors and church leaders that are still in the thick of it. You guys led a church for many, many years. You raised your kids there. You now have grandkids. I would just love to hear a little bit about kind of the ups and downs of ministry, maybe things you wished you knew when you were in the thick of it that could be an encouragement to the rest of us.
Wow, that's a loaded question that requires a dissertation to complete. I will say that we've had a variety of forms of ministry after being married for 34 years, but in ministry together for 35 years. So we've had lots of different expressions of ministry, whether it's the established church, the small church, the mega church. We even started a church, which is the church you came to 23 years ago, pastored it for 23 years. And we were even missionaries for 4 years prior to that, living internationally. So I think we've had a little bit of variety. So you could pick a category, and I've got mistakes and successes in all of those, as well as Lori. And so we've done it together.
Hey, you claim your own mistakes. You don't have to point to me. But I have plenty of them too. So one of the best advice pieces that someone gave me was to know when you need to be like rubber and let things bounce off of you, and when you need to be like a sponge and learn to absorb. And so that is literally something that I think I've carried with me in every place that we have led.
That's a great words of wisdom. Well, talk about Great Invitation, greatinvitation.org. My wife and I are hoping to come and be a part of it sometime soon. I would love for you to just describe what you're seeing in the lives of these church leaders, pastors, and spouses who come and spend some time there with you in Arkansas. Talk a little bit about Great Invitation.
Yeah, here's the thing is the Great Invitation, I think, was birthed really out of our own seasons of ministry and experiences, but then also stepping back and kind of doing an overview of where ministry leaders and missionaries are all together. So even the name, the Great Invitation itself, I've heard it before, that phrase before, but I think it was something we didn't realize was missing from our own ministry life. We had been passionate about the Great Commandment, and we've been driven by the Great Commission and doing all of these things and working incredibly hard. But I think there's something that we had been missing in our life that we didn't realize it until we looked back. And that is Jesus's great invitation to where he says, "Come to me, all who are weary, learn from me, take my yoke upon you. You will find rest for your soul." And the thing about that is, while we have been passionate and driven by the Great Commandment and the Great Commission, the Great Invitation really is the genesis. It's what, before Jesus sends us out to do all of this ministry kind of work, he actually invites us in. And so we've created this ministry that we're calling the Great Invitation, because we know that while ministry leaders, missionaries, frontline gospel workers, whatever you want to term them as, they are working hard, and it is holy work, but it is incredibly at times exhausting, depleting, soul weary. And at times you'll hear even pastors, missionaries say, all of these things exist: weariness, exhaustion, isolation, but there's nowhere for us to turn. And so This ministry we have created for that place, for missionaries, ministry leaders to come away and to get that soul care that they need.
Yeah, I love that. Don't think I've ever heard that. Great Commission, Great Commandment, and Great Invitation. This idea of abiding in Christ, and out of the deep love and connection we have with him, that's how we serve. And yet that's so often not how we pull it off. If someone were to come to Arkansas, what are some of the ways you offer healing and rest? What are you seeing in the lives of some of these pastors and church leaders?
Well, as an innovative church podcast, one of the things that we have learned from being an innovative church planting team as well, because that's what exactly we are is a team at this, is we have seen the burnout, we have seen the loneliness. But the thing is that we have experienced it. And it was whenever I was in my early 30s on another cycle of burnout and overextension and, innovating and the church growing and so forth. And it was just literally the work of God without was crushing the work of God within. And there needed to be a right sizing of that. And it was something of us enlisting a spiritual director, enlisting mentors that spoke into our life in our early 30s that literally changed the trajectory of our ministry. And we're seeing that with people as well, couples that come, individuals that come that are in that same state, and we are able to walk with them in a pastoral, caring, soul care kind of way to be able to see them again finish the course that God has given them.
That's so beautiful. I think, there's more attention lately on spiritual disciplines of solitude, of silence, things that we're not used to. What are some of the ways that you've encouraged pastors and church leaders that have come and spent time with you to incorporate this into the rhythm of life and ministry? Like, how are you seeing folks more prepared for long-term effectiveness?
I think sometimes, well, first of all, I think sometimes we use, we use the word solitude. A lot of times we use the word soul care, to which sometimes people can go, wait a minute, I don't know if I need soul care, because we think of it like as this self-help with some kind of spiritual language attached to it. But really what we're advocating for in this and in the Great Imitation, whether it's coming away for solitude or whatever it might be, really taking that time, that space, those of us who are spending so much time where God is doing work through us, but often we don't take the time to pay attention to the work that God is doing within us. And so when people come to the Great Invitation, really, we're kind of like, the invitation for us is really more like in three ways. One of those is come away, where people can come away to the Great Invitation, to a private cabin, 2 to 4 nights, where they get guided but customized spiritual guidance, soul care, and whatever it is that they are going through. And so that's a come away soul care intensive. But another way that we are looking at walking alongside ministry leaders is really the come alongside. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I wish I had that a lot in my ministry life, that someone who would just come alongside me in a rhythmic way in transformational mentoring or spiritual direction and just kind of help walk with me through some of these things that were going on within my own soul, but I couldn't express to people necessarily that I was leading, but it was affecting how I was leading. And then the third way is really where we come to you. So whether it is a church team, a church staff, whether a church happens to be located, or maybe even overseas globally with some missionary teams and so forth, where we actually come to you and we bring the soul care, we bring the transformational mentoring, we bring the leadership development to people on the ground wherever they happen to be. And we integrate those things like you're talking about, like solitude and Sabbath, where we move away from the striving into stillness, away from always thinking about productivity and being in God's presence, but helping people to do that in such a way that soul rest isn't just like it's a reward for really hard work, but rather it becomes the rhythm of how we go back and engage in the ministry work that we're doing.
I like that. And I wonder too, as you guys are bringing spiritual direction, whether it's in person or online or you're traveling, those sorts of things, what are some of the ways you've seen pastors and their spouses work through the tough times, even as ministry is still coming? Every Sunday, there's another
Yes.
and maybe even in your own life, what are some ways that you've been able to make it through to have this long-term effective ministry?
Right. Well, you can look at the statistics and see the number of pastors out there that are struggling. 1,500 missionaries and pastors and ministry leaders are contemplating leaving the ministry every month. 1 in 5, Barna said, 1 in 5 pastors are considering self-harm in any given year. So the statistics are out there, but personally, it's real for us because as a lead pastor, I have been both the giver of hurt and the recipient of hurt inside of the church. And so what we want to do is create that safe space where you can come away and find the healing, find the strengthening, find the space to hear from God, because too much of our time, it seems, when you're in the ministry is about the next event or our new program and less about our own space of who we are in Christ. And I've seen that in my own life. I've seen that leading a pastoral team. And I've said it before that being a leader is overrated because I would just say that creating a healthy space for pastors and ministry leaders to heal and to find refreshment before they go back into the fray of ministry.
Yeah, I think we can give personal testimony in some sense to this, in that, a few years ago, I remember Mike, even one of his messages, like saying, look, I'm dealing with anxiety. Like, he was going through the thick of anxiety. It's probably about a year after that I slammed head on into a wall of depression. And I'm not necessarily proud of that, but those are the realities I think that ministry people can be walking through. Even when you quoted Barna, another stat that Barna gives is 22% of ministry leaders characterize their spiritual well-being as strong or excellent. Like, only 22%. And I think I've walked that. I think Mike has navigated that, where we were doing ministry, but that ministry was flowing from an exhausted soul, from a depleted soul. And honestly, it's just a matter of time sometimes before something breaks. And so unless something shifts and changes, like creating a ministry like the Great Imitation, where we give resources, where we can provide sacred spaces for ministry leaders and missionaries to find the soul care and the help that we need, then what we're going to keep churning out is ministry leaders who feel like they have to keep working harder and harder and harder, and not necessarily creating spaces for ministry leaders to get healthy so that they can then enter into the hard work of ministry.
Yeah. Well, and there's just so many pastors and spouses whose families fall apart. They don't make it as a couple. I know even in our own marriage, for us going through a season of healing and restoration with counselors and people who knew what we were dealing with. Even now I have a group of guys, other pastors, that we get together once a month. And it's just nice to let our hair down, so to speak, to just be able to talk about what it's like where we're at, knowing we don't have to worry whether they're going to leave us because they've got their own community to worry about. But there is something really important about creating that space. And I feel like in many ways, what you guys are doing is leadership teams. Like you said, it's not just couples that are in ministry, although that's a huge part of what you do, but entire teams to just kind of reset in order to move forward. It's a post-pandemic, post-Christian, increasingly in more and more places, ministry is just hard. And I love that this invitation to really go about ministry in a totally different way. Maybe describe where, if someone were to come to you, describe what it's like where you are now.
Oh, I'd love to do that. I would love to take you around the place. We own property here on Beaver Lake in Northwest Arkansas, one of the top places that anybody would want to move to, just because of there's so much beauty and opportunity here. But we're nestled on a kind of a peninsula on Beaver Lake with 400 foot of frontage, a cabin, places, hammocks, kayaks, places that people can really find that solitude and pull away from, where it is truly a sacred space for an opportunity to turn everything else off and to just lean in and listen to God. Find refreshment, recalibration. Maybe it's in a time of transition. People are going, it's not just the reactive, what's bad is happening. It's how can we be proactive? Like, we're coaching a young couple right now through a sabbatical journey, and just so that they can come back stronger for the next season. We just had some church planters here that are nearing burnout and their marriage is not as healthy as it should be. We went through a marriage recalibration. So there's any number of things, but we have a space here that's private, secluded, and beautiful for people to come and find rest and recalibrate to a new rhythm when they go.
Well, I'd love to hear any final words for pastors, church leaders that are really either on the verge of breakthrough or struggling for that breakthrough. What other encouraging words do you have for us today?
I think first of all, I'd say I'm sorry. I think second, I would say is you're not alone, and you can feel alone, but don't attempt to go at it alone. I think third, I would say dare to tend to what's beneath the surface, because while you might be feeling that, it might feel like this is never going to end. How do I fix this? I think at times that's the initial invitation. If we pay attention, that God is saying, hey, I'm inviting you into something deeper. And it comes back to that verse where Jesus says, come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Like, learn from me, take my yoke upon you. What I love about how that verse begins is an invitation from Jesus, come. One of my new favorite verses, and I'll have a new one next week, but one of my new favorite verses this week is Psalm 66:16. And it says this, as the psalmist is creating this invitation: come and listen, all you who fear God, and let me tell you what he's done for my soul. Like, there had to be some time where the psalmist, and when we read the Psalms, we read all kinds of vocabulary of lament and emotion and distress and discouragement, and yet celebration and seeing God at work, and yet questioning God, like all of these kinds of things. And yet the invitation comes from him, his experience with God, saying, hey, to other people, hey, come and let me tell you what he's done for my soul. So maybe here's the question for ministry leaders, missionaries. What if what you're feeling and experiencing right now is simply an invitation from God to go deeper into your soul, where at the heart of the gospel is transformation that ultimately leads to and becomes a springboard for you, and then inviting others to expanding the gospel in not a new gospel, but a true gospel in a sustainable, reproducible, inviting, and compelling kind of way.
Beautiful. Anything you'd add to that, Mike?
Just the realization that having been in vocational ministry for over 30 years, there's probably nothing that we haven't either experienced or seen. In this next season of our ministry, if we can help and be a part of ministry leaders, missionaries, pastors, frontline ministry workers, however you want to call it, if we can see them grow deeper into a more authentic, true self, growing deeper into their faith like they've never grown before, not assuming because they're a ministry leader that they're growing deeper, but also to go further, finish the course, as Paul said, finish the race and not be disqualified. So going further, and then lastly, leading healthier. There have been so many seasons where I have not been on my best game. And then there have been seasons where I've been on my best game. And the repercussions of both are beautiful or tragic. And so we want to see people grow deeper, go further, and lead healthier in their ministry, life, and context.
So good. Greatinvitation.org. Mike and Lori, thanks for taking some time today, and thanks for investing in pastors and church leaders. So grateful for you.
Thank you. It's been an honor to be here.
Thanks for joining us for the Innovative Church Leaders Podcast. Go to my website, ericbryant.org, for my newsletter and free resources.